Hi guys, Demon Ferret here, and you may notice I'll only have one hand in this video. It's because the other one is keeping me on track and holding my list. Don't worry about it. It's the first time I've done this. We'll see how it goes, whatever. So, today we're going to be talking about denials within the furry fandom. What do I mean by denials within the furry fandom? Basically, I mean things that the fandom typically likes to exaggerate or underplay, or statements that are just blatantly false, but people like to believe they're true anyway, because furries. So, yeah, let's just do this. The first thing we're going to talk about is something I've talked about a lot, and that is the size of the fandom. And I'm not going over this just because it's a denial, because I've gone over it before, but because a few of my denials after this directly relate to this one. And that is how big the fandom is. The fandom is not very big at all, especially compared to other fandoms, or hobbies, or interests, whatever you want to call it. We are extremely small. Bronies are bigger than us. Just by a logical standpoint. Furries only account for 1% of the global population. And of that, most of them are located in the US, Europe, and Australia. That's it. There's a decent population in Japan, but it's not as significant. So before anyone gets on me on that one, there's a decent one in Japan, but it's not as significant. Okay? It's growing, but it's not quite there yet. But other countries don't have the same coverage. Africa and Asia, just as continents, don't have the same coverage. So that alone really hurts our numbers. South America also, they have a community, but it's not very spread out. So the coverage is also pretty bad there. I've gone over it more in the video that you'll see pop up in the card up there, where I break it down a bit more with actual numbers and explaining why it's 1% of 1%. And I think with our steady growth and the world's insane growth, it's gonna stay that way for a while. I don't see the 1% of 1% changing anytime soon. It might become 1% of 2%, or maybe the other way around. I don't know. Anything could change, but either way, we're probably gonna stay in that weird sort of really, really low bracket for a very, 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 very long time. And people need to get that straight. Seriously, you need to get that straight. Furries, as far as the world is concerned, are nothing. There aren't even, conceivably, 1 million furries in the world. Again, I go over that in that other video. So, yeah. We might be an older fandom in some senses, but we're still very niche, very small, and because of that, a lot of denial happens, because there's just a lot of misconceptions and preconceptions and beliefs that we are way more important than we are. Next is how important we are. Basically what I mean is how much we have an influence on the general population. And this could be anything, whether it be laws, media, anything like that. How important we are, how much the general population gives a shit that we exist. And let me tell you something. They don't. Zootopia is a big, big example of this. When this film was announced, the fandom went nuts. We all know this. And it was either one of two reasons. One, people thought that Zootopia was going to bring in a new generation of furries, which it did. That's acceptable. That's an honest That's an honest assumption. The other one was that Zootopia was made for furries. No, it was not. Zootopia was made because the filmmakers really liked Robin Hood. And they wanted to create those kinds of films again. So they essentially went back to Disney's roots. And put that modern spin to it that we have now in today's animation. That's literally the history. Nothing to do with furries. Any association you see, any joke you see that's more adult geared, is because it's Disney. They do that. They've always done that. There's nothing new. There's nothing furry geared. It has nothing to do with us. It just happens to be appealing to the fandom due to its content. Big whoop-de-doodles. Okay? Big whoop. No one caters to us. Unless I specifically say so. Which is extremely rare. We're not that important. Most people don't even know we exist. Because we're less than 1% of 1% of the global population. So, there you go. Moving on. The next one, again, is related to population. And it's the idea that others have to see us as normal. This one's difficult. Because I understand the want for our community to be seen as not a freak show. I get it. But it's not going to happen. And you can't force someone to believe something they don't want to believe. If people want to believe that furries are weirdos who sit all day in their homes dressed as animals, or they go to the store just as an animal, even though we know logically that that doesn't work, you get kicked out. You know, or they believe that we're sexual deviants. There's not much we can do. And you're not going to change that simply by saying, you need to see us as normal, you need to respect my hobby, blah, 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 blah. Really all you can say about that. It's not realistic, it's not going to happen, oh well. Now, this next one, I might get a little flack for. And that is the idea that the furry fandom, this hobby, is normal. And I'm talking about in an internal sense, not an external sense. Now, as far as furries are concerned, we are normal to ourselves. But it's not unanimous. There are many furries out there who think that fursuiters are weird. There are many furries out there who think that people who enjoy adult art are weird. But in the end, this fandom, this hobby, this interest, isn't mainstream normal. It's just not. I mean, to get to a very basic level of why it's not normal, fursuiting, this, is dangerous. It's just flat out dangerous. It increases your risk of heart attack and heat stroke, and it can decrease your lifespan. These are just facts. Now, when I say it can decrease your lifespan, that's dependent on a lot of factors. Your personal medical history, what you do in suit, blah, blah, blah. But when you increase your risk of heart attacks and heat stroke and who knows what else, yeah. Whenever you wear one of these, it's comparable to running in the Arizona desert on a hot day. So, if you're running through the Arizona desert on a hot day, that is detrimental to your health. I'm sorry. That's just how that works. And some may say, well, people skydive That's dangerous to your health. That is true. Skydiving isn't normal. There's a difference between being normal and being accepted by society. And even something like skydiving, or even something more tame like bungee jumping, isn't fully accepted by society. And fully accepted by society would be something that the vast majority agrees is perfectly okay, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. Like, stamp collecting would be something that you could say is accepted by society, because who the hell cares? Coin collecting, same thing. Perfectly acceptable. Who cares? Bungee jumping, skydiving, many of the more physically dangerous hobbies are not considered fully normal and are not fully accepted by society. Because there's always going to be a fairly large group of people who are going to say, you're crazy. And they're not wrong. So for furries, this is not normal. But just because something is not normal doesn't mean it's bad. And this is a personal phrase of mine that I like to use to emphasize this sort of thing. It's not 100% applicable here, but I think it gets across the essence of what I'm trying to say. You might be crazy, but you're not insane. There's a difference between these concepts. Just because you're not normal doesn't mean that you're bad. And if you say the fandom is not bad, you're absolutely correct. If you say the fandom is normal, we gotta have a talk. So, directly jumping off of this, the next one that I see a lot is people trying to bring themselves to believe, whether or not it's through idealism or because they truly believe it, that one day, whether it be sooner or later, the furry fandom will become normalized in today's society, or tomorrow's society. And I'm sorry, it's not gonna happen. Yeah, I'm being a downer today. But then again, when am I not? Kind of the essence of this whole shtick that I do. I ruin lives. I ruin hopes and dreams. Furries are never gonna be fully normalized. It's not gonna happen. We're too out there, we're too niche, our population is not gonna become big enough. If, like I said before, the Furry population is much higher than ours, they are subject to far worse bullying than us at this point. If they're at that point with higher numbers than us, that really shows how hopeless we are. The basic fact of the matter is that if you are involved in something that to the majority of people makes absolutely no goddamn sense, that's the end of it for you. That's it. That's the end of it. Now, some may say, well, what about, Comic-Con and all that? That's still not normal. It's that, all of that, Star Trek, Star Wars, all those fan bases are still not normalized. There are still plenty of people out there who are judged for being very, very strong fans of Star Wars, or being Trekkies, or, being those extreme comic book nerds. I'm sure there are words for some of these, but I don't know them. People are still judged for these. And that's way older than us. Way older than us. And and they still have problems. Yes, okay, they don't deal as much with the stereotypes so much anymore, but you still get people going, they're weird, just ignore them, they'll be over there in their corner, just blah. We will never leave that corner. It's never gonna happen. If they can't do it, we can't do it. And anyone who thinks that we are more acceptable than them is out of their mind. I don't know what more to say there. Yes, it's a nice thought that furries could be accepted. And that people just be like, furries, yeah, whatever. It's just like, oh, stamp collecting, cool, whatever. My uncle does that. It would be nice if we could get to that point, but I don't think we ever will. And if it ever does happen, it's not going to be in any of our lifetimes. And sometimes that's not a bad thing. Because my question to you is, why do you want to be normalized by society? Why does anyone have this goal? Would it truly make your life easier? Or would it make it harder because constantly it's always in your face? For many people, the furry fandom is an escape from real life. And it's a lot easier when you can make that very clear distinction between the two. No one knows you're a furry, and that's the great part of it all. If it's normalized, that escape's gone now. So again, it's a good thought, but maybe it's better that's not possible. Think about it that way. Maybe we're better off where we are. Okay, this next one is very much related to the last one. See, a lot of these are related, but you'll see what I mean. Furries needing to be accepted. Now, this is different from furries being normalized in society, because this is the demand for furries to be accepted. For example, if I'm a furry and I tell my boss I'm a furry, they cannot have their own opinion about it. Because if they do, then they're an asshole. And I'm allowed to get them in trouble for having issue with my furriness. No. It does not work this way. Discrimination is bad. Discrimination because you're a furry is stupid. But no one is obligated to care about you because of your hobbies. If someone says, oh, you're a stamp collector, that's stupid. Why don't you actually go get a life? Yeah, that's a douche opinion. But I'm not obligated to like stamp collectors. I don't have to accept them. I don't have to do anything. As long as I'm not beating them up for it, or firing them because they have an interest in stamps, I'm golden. Furries do not need to be accepted, ever. And I hate when people try to convince people who hate furries that they have to accept furries because hating is bad. Hating is not a good thing to do. Just society-wise, it's not cool beans. But if someone hates something, they're gonna hate it. You can't do anything about it. Oh well, tough noodles. Alright, so I want to split this up into two, because I wanted to. Furries needing to be accepted in places. It's one thing to be accepted by a person for personal reasons. It's another thing for furries to be accepted in a location because you feel you have a right to be there. Now this mostly applies to fursuiters, Actually, this pretty much solely applies to fursuiters. But it's still a thing. There are so many people who will try to go to a store in a fursuit. They get kicked out. And they're just like, but it's my hobby. Why do you discriminate? There are rules for a reason. My favorite reason is a Walmart story. I totally forgot where I heard this, but it's the best one I've ever heard. A man goes into a Walmart in a cow costume, steals either 6 or 12 gallons of milk. I don't remember, I just remember it was a denomination of 6. He leaves. He hid all of it in the costume. He hands out the gallons of milk immediately outside the store, but just far enough where they can't do anything. That's hilarious. They only caught the guy because he came back into the Walmart later with the head off. Nope, during this entire time, even when handing out the milk, he's in the full costume. He comes back into the Walmart later after handing out all of the stolen milk. Comes back into the store, head off, to eat in the McDonald's, in the cow suit, with the head off. And gets arrested. I love it. But shit like this, all the Batman incidences, because they're like bajillions, these are reasons why fursuiters aren't allowed in stores. It has nothing to do with fursuiters, but has everything to do with the fact that masked people can steal and get away with it because they cannot be identified. It's a liability problem. Stop thinking that has anything to do with furries. Fursuiters do not have to be accepted in any private place. They also don't have to be accepted in certain public places, such as parks. Especially if where you live has mask laws. If you live in a place with mask laws and the police show up and tell you to take the suits off, guess what you gotta do? You have to take it off by law. And it's not persecution. Many of those laws actually have to do with the KKK. Some have to do with some other reasons, but many of them have to do with the KKK. Are they outdated? Sure. But are they still enforced in some places? Yes. So, yeah. Where I live actually does have mask laws. But the police around here don't care. As long as you're not being disruptive, they don't care. I also always carry my ID in a visible place. So I'm never hiding my identity anyway. Pro tip. Always carry your ID in a visible place when you're public suiting. So yeah. Furries, fursuits, none of that needs to be accepted in any place. It's not discrimination. It's not denial of services because of any race, ethnicity, or anything else. It's you causing a problem and a disturbance because they fear that you are going to rob them. Moving on. Alright. Here we go. The big one. The big kahuna. The denial of how big the adult side of the fandom is. Oh boy. Oh boy. Here's the thing. If people say that a majority of furries do not join the fandom for the adult side, this is true. That's where that 14 to 15% statistic actually applies. Only around 14 to 15% of people join the fandom because of adult content. How many furries enjoy adult content within the fandom? At least over 50%. At least over 50%. Now, how important that content is varies from statistic to statistic. Sometimes it's, 60, sometimes it's around 40, but almost across the board, the people who do not partake in any adult material at all is a minority at around 30%. 30% don't engage in it at all. Yeah. Again, it's still absolutely true to say the fandom is not sexual. Because to state the fandom is sexual is to imply that we're here because of adult concepts. And that applies to that 13%. But it is extremely dishonest to say that 13% are the only people who enjoy adult content. Now, we could really break this down into what classifies as adult content. Are we talking sexual? Are we talking gore? Are we talking nudity, vor? What exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about explicitly stuff with genitalia or not? That is some serious breakdowns that haven't really exclusively been done. But the general breakdown is that of adult content, those who join it for sexual content is around 13%, and those who do not join the fandom for adult content and do not partake in it whatsoever in any format at all is around 30%. We're a minority. Get used to it. Now, this is okay though. We're human beings. We're extremely sexual creatures. And I'm going to be doing a video on why this is a thing. Not why humans are sexual creatures, but why this prevalence is so prevalent later on. But just a basic explanation that humans are extremely sexual creatures. We are. And whatever we get ourselves involved in, we as a species will find a way to twist it into that category. If you collect toasters, I'm sorry, you're gonna fantasize about a toaster. At some point in your days, it's gonna happen, and you're gonna sit there going, huh? What? What did I just do? And you may have had no intention about it at all, but suddenly it happened because you spent that much time around toasters. It's okay. It's natural for humans to do this. As long as you don't go screw a toaster, it's okay. Because that's just unhealthy. But yes, the adult side is actually very prevalent. Let's stop lying about this. Because we would get a lot more respect if we just told the truth. The problems that we get is that we lie. A lot of people get more pissed at us, not because the adult side exists, but because we blatantly lie about it. So stop. You're making us look bad, or worse. Whichever way you want to look at it. So, yeah. That's a thing. Alright, this next one might get a little confusing. And it's the idea that we think that our opinions are fact and not biased. And to explain this is extremely difficult. But, for example, the adult argument. We believe that we are factual in saying that the number is much lower when we are in the category of not partaking in any adult side of the fandom. Because that's our perception. But we are biased. At the same time where furries who say, no, the entire fandom is sexual, they are in that category where they partake in sexual activity, so they are also biased. People who believe that fursuits can only be made in this one way because they make fursuits that way. That's not fact. That's bias. Now, there are some things that are fact, like you can make fursuits out of cardboard. But there's empirical, I'm not going to say data, but I'm going to say reasons why that's not okay. Like, you know, mold. But there are a lot of statements that furries make in general that are not facts. They're opinions, but we state them as facts because it's our perception, and we don't make that clarification. That makes us look stupid. So, because this is a hard topic to describe, I'm going to do a little bit of an activity here. If you've run into a statement, or have yourself said a statement that's technically an opinion, not a fact, but has been passed as a fact, leave them in the comments. Let's see what people come up with. Let's try to get something going here. Because like I said, this is a really hard one to talk about, but I'm sure that once you think about it, you'll definitely know what I'm talking about if you really look. Or if you just examine some of the things that you read or some of the things that you hear. So that's what we're going to do for this one. Think about yourself. Think about the things that you've read or what you've been told. Leave them in the comments. Let's see what we can come up with. Let's see what ridiculous things people have tried to pass off as fact. Let's have some fun. So this next one is the idea that the fandom does not have skewed statistics. So it is true that the fandom can be basically seen as a sort of subsection of human culture. If you can find it out there, you can find it in the fandom. But that doesn't mean that certain things aren't greatly exaggerated. For example, in the general populace, the homosexual population is typically around 5 to 12%, whether or not you want to take into account the predictions for lying or hiding. In the fandom, it's more around like 26, 27%. And that's only people who are 100% no variations gay. They are straight as a circle, gay as a rainbow. It's not even counting people who are homosexual, but slightly on the bi spectrum. When you get into those people, then it gets into an even higher percentage. This is extremely skewed. Another example. In the fandom, you are 4 times more likely to find someone with autism. 4 times. The idea that our statistics of our population are not skewed greatly is astoundingly false. Now, what you want to attribute this to is up to you. I'm not going to make that kind of determination. There are plenty of psychological reasons behind it. There's circumstantial evidence. There's not a lot of causal. There's mostly just circumstantial and some correlation. But causal does not equal correlation. So for now, it's more of just, this is happening. Huh. But to say that doesn't happen, to say that you're just as likely to find someone with autism in the fandom as you would on the street, no. The percentages completely disagree with you. Same thing with ADHD, dyslexia, and certain other problems, or learning disabilities, or whatever. These things are far more common within the fandom. The reason why, you take your pick on your guess, but it's skewed extremely, and if someone brings that up, you just have to accept that they're right. And it's not something to get defensive over. And it's not something to lie about. Again, most of our problems with respect from others who aren't in this fandom is due to the fact that these people who aren't in the fandom, who bring up this stuff, have actually done the research. They bring it up because they did the research and they're seeing our reaction to it. And when we lie, we're just proving what they believe. That we're trying to hide. Stop hiding. Even if you think that it will make our image look better, it doesn't. It makes them more angry and makes them respect us less. Embrace what we are, regardless of what the hell that might mean. If you are proud of this fandom, be proud of it in all of its colors. Alright? That's all you gotta do. And now the last one. Oh, the last one. And I'm also gonna make this one a group effort, because I think it's an interesting one. How to define the fandom. Because no one can agree on this one, and it's a big source of denial. Why is it denial? Because of one thing. All furry is a person who is interested in anthropomorphic animals and chooses to participate in this community. You need those two things to be a furry. And that's it. Some might argue you just need to participate in the community and that's it. I can agree to that one. I do not agree with the statement. The characters from Lion King are furry. Robin Hood is a furry. My Little Pony is furry. Zootopia is furry. No, it's not. They did not make those with the intention of the fandom. Now, there are furry medias out there. In terms of movies, we have Bitter Lake. In terms of writing material, there are plenty of comics and a few books that have been made by furries for furries. Those can be given the furry adjective, no problemo. This is where the problem comes from. A lot of people want to ascribe the furry label on so many things that aren't furry, and there's just a denial that this is just incorrect. Either that or it's a misunderstanding. Either way, when someone corrects someone about this, it's like, no, they're furry, fuck you. So, the participation question for this one is, how would you define a furry? Whether or not I agree with you is a completely separate matter, because I probably won't. I'm curious just to see what you think, because I've already told you my definition. And as far as I'm concerned, my definition is the simplest, the most accurate, and I've never had someone tell me that it was incorrect in any way, because it's not, on a factual level. An interest in anthropomorphic animals, or characters, however you want to say it. The Brave Little Toaster doesn't really count in this whole fandom, so, yeah. But the big thing is someone who chooses to participate in the community. That's the big clincher. And I've gone over the fact that the anthro fandom exists. People who fit all the tropes, but actively choose not to participate in this community. They are not furries because they hate furries. They want nothing to do with us. So that's where my definition comes from, because it takes everybody into account and simplifies it to its most basic form. No mention of art, no mention of fursuiters, no mention of nothing. Because once you start getting into that, you start excluding other people. There are some people who may hate the art, hate the fursuits, hate everything except the idea. So if you start mentioning art or anything else, you're excluding them too. I think the simplest definition in this case is the best one. But I'm still curious to see what you think. So throw them also in the comments down below, as well as the weird opinions you may have gotten as fact that I talked about earlier. And hopefully this may have opened your eyes a little bit. I may have crushed your hopes and dreams. I don't know. But either way, these are things that I feel that need to be talked about. Because everyone does in the sidelines. Everyone talks about them when gossiping with their friends. But no one ever comes out and just says it. So here I am. I'm coming out, I'm saying it, I'm calling us out on our BS. And I'm not saying that I am excluded from any of this. I am not. I am not special. So, with that, guys, I'll see you guys later. Bye!